Is there any competition between the different sets, the different groups?
There's no competition for me because I'm the strongest.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
Awful and intimidating feeling stepping into that. You'd have to really reinvent it and take it a different way. But it was born of like, I don't know, if I had to like cast someone as a,
How long will you play Captain Marvel for?
I don't know. I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
Don't be so modest.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
My dream would be to do an absolutely 100% faithful Deadpool adaptation, straight out of the comic books, breaking the fourth wall, pop culture references, the whole 9 yards. Knows he's in a movie, knows he's in a comic book.
Right.
That kind of vibe. That would be a dream.
It seems like you're touching on some controversies surrounding Disney's recent attempts at pushing empowerment messages in their movies, and how these efforts might be falling flat with audiences. You're also mentioning Brie Larson's frustration, possibly stemming from her association with Disney's empowered image, and Ryan Reynolds being involved in some way. Brie Larson has been the face of Disney's more progressive messaging, especially in the Captain Marvel era, and if there's tension between her and Disney or Reynolds, it might have to do with the ways they've been handling the narrative around empowerment versus the actual storytelling. Disney's recent struggles to balance these themes with engaging content is a real issue, especially given how these attempts sometimes feel forced. If you're referring to a specific incident or issue between Brie Larson and Ryan Reynolds, I'd be curious to hear more. It sounds like there's a lot of behind-the-scenes drama happening at Disney right now, especially with the way their recent projects are being received by audiences. If Ryan Reynolds is speaking out against Disney's decisions, particularly the direction they've taken with their empowerment messaging and how it's affected box office performance, it's no surprise that someone like Brie Larson might feel personally attacked. After all, her role in Captain Marvel and her public persona have been central to Disney's recent push for empowerment, and if Disney is struggling, it's hard not to see her as a symbolic part of that. Larson's frustration could be rooted in the sense that she's being caught in the fallout of Disney's broader missteps, particularly when it comes to Snow White and the rumored issues with Rachel Zegler. If she's doubling down on defending these empowerment-driven projects, it could be her attempt to protect her stance and the role she's played in promoting that vision for Disney. But at the same time, if her frustration is focused on Reynolds' comments, it might also stem from feeling personally blamed for the failure of projects she championed, whether or not it's entirely her responsibility. As for whether her anger is justified, it depends on how you look at it. From a personal standpoint, it's understandable for someone who's been at the forefront of a movement to feel upset when it's being criticized, especially if she believes the backlash is more about the system than her performance. But if it's about protecting her own image, it could be a bit more self-serving, especially if she feels that the collapse of Disney's recent efforts reflects poorly on her. The whole situation definitely highlights just how messy things have gotten behind the scenes at Disney, where the narrative of empowerment has clashed with the need for strong storytelling and audience engagement.
Is there any competition between the different sets, the different groups?
There's no competition for me because I'm the strongest.
Which is your favorite MCU dynamic duo? I'm gonna go Carol and Fury.
Yeah, me too. Because I am actually the strongest.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna blow this bitch up.
How did I live this long? That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, well, when a bad idea is the only idea, it becomes a
It sounds like Deadpool 3 had a really wild behind-the-scenes story that unfolded as the film progressed, especially when it came to Disney's involvement and the creative pushback from Ryan Reynolds. The idea of integrating Brie Larson's Captain Marvel into the movie was a bold choice from Disney, but it clearly sparked some serious tension, both in terms of creative direction and the overall tone of the film. Disney's plan to have Larson's Captain Marvel cameo and set up future MCU projects makes sense from a studio perspective. They're looking to tie the film into their grander vision for the MCU. However, if Reynolds, who's known for his irreverent and unpredictable approach to Deadpool, had a different creative vision for how the film should feel and where it should go, then that clash was inevitable. Ryan Reynolds has always been vocal about Deadpool staying true to its tone and not being constrained by the typical MCU formula, so Disney's push for more connective tissue might not have sat well with him. The drama around Brie Larson's potential inclusion as Captain Marvel in Deadpool 3 could be more than just creative differences. It could be a reflection of the larger tension between Disney's corporate vision and Reynolds' desire to keep Deadpool true to its roots, particularly its irreverent humor and rebellious spirit. If Larson's cameo was being pushed as a way to set up the next phase of the MCU, it might have clashed with the type of narrative Deadpool thrives on, which is very much about breaking from the norm rather than adhering to the traditional superhero tropes. Ultimately, it seems like Deadpool 3's legacy could be defined not just by the on-screen pairing of Deadpool and Wolverine, but by the behind-the-scenes battle between Disney's plans for the MCU and Reynolds' determination to keep the film in line with his vision for the character. The behind-the-scenes drama around the Deadpool 3 reboot truly seems like a clash of visions between Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and Disney. For Reynolds and Jackman, this movie was supposed to honor the legacy of Deadpool and Wolverine, with the stakes incredibly high as they viewed it as potentially their final turn in these iconic roles. Their focus was on delivering a film that stayed true to the chaotic, gritty, and irreverent tone that made Deadpool a fan favorite, particularly from its Fox era. In contrast, Disney, under CEO Bob Iger's leadership, pushed for a softer, more family-friendly approach to align with the broader MCU's tone. Disney's inclination to tone down the violence and humor would have fundamentally altered the character's essence, especially given that Deadpool's success thrives on sharp humor and over-the-top action. That's where the clash really came into play. Disney's family-friendly ethos didn't mesh with Deadpool's edgy nature, and that created significant tension. As for Brie Larson's Captain Marvel cameo, it sounds like it was meant to be a strategic move from Disney's side. They likely saw it as a way to tie Deadpool 3 into the larger MCU, especially after the Marvel's box office struggles. Larson's inclusion could have served as a bridge to future MCU films, ensuring continuity and perhaps reigniting interest in Captain Marvel. But for Reynolds, Jackman, and director Shawn Levy, this felt like a fundamental misunderstanding of what made Deadpool so successful in the first place. Their vision was not about integrating existing MCU characters, but instead about creating a film that could stand apart and leave a lasting impression without relying on the typical MCU formulas. The proposed scenes involving Captain Marvel were likely intended to tie the film into Disney's greater plans, but this would have undercut the Deadpool universe, which thrives on breaking the fourth wall and going against the grain of traditional superhero movies. It seems like Disney's insistence on this inclusion, despite the protests of Reynolds and Jackman, further highlights the creative differences at play. Ultimately, it sounds like Deadpool 3 was meant to be a grand send-off for these beloved characters, but Disney's desire to steer it toward the broader MCU narrative created a situation where both creative freedom and the legacy of these characters were in jeopardy. It'll be interesting to see how they navigated these issues on screen, and whether they found a way to keep the integrity of Deadpool intact while also satisfying Disney's broader MCU vision. The behind-the-scenes drama surrounding Deadpool 3 really showcases the tension between creative vision and corporate control, especially when it comes to the clash between Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and Disney. It's clear that Reynolds, with the support of Jackman, was fighting to preserve the essence of Deadpool, its irreverent, boundary-pushing tone that had defined the character in the Fox era. Disney's push for synergy with the larger MCU and the inclusion of Brie Larson's Captain Marvel seemed like a marketing-driven move that didn't align with the film's core identity. The addition of such a cameo would have felt forced, like the movie was trying too hard to fit into a broader narrative that wasn't necessary for Deadpool 3 to succeed. For Brie Larson, the situation was particularly frustrating. After the lackluster performance of the Marvels at the box office, the cameo in Deadpool 3 represented more than just a crossover opportunity. It was her chance to reinvigorate Captain Marvel's relevance and prove that her character still had a place in the MCU. Despite the negative reception, Larson's optimistic attitude in interviews shows her commitment to the character and the larger message of empowerment. even as the corporate decisions around her role shifted. The fact that Reynolds was able to push back so strongly on the inclusion of Larson's cameo speaks volumes about how much control he was able to wrest back from Disney. Reports suggesting that Reynolds threatened to walk away unless he had full creative control really highlight how high the stakes were. Reynolds and Jackman clearly understood that Deadpool 3 had to stay true to what made it successful in the first place, the irreverent humor and chaotic energy, and they weren't willing to compromise that vision for the sake of MCU synergy. Jackman's rejection of Disney's promotional strategy further underscores the tension. Refusing to participate in press tours or interviews shows how strongly he felt about maintaining creative independence. It seems like Deadpool 3 became a battleground for not just character development, but for artistic freedom, with Reynolds and Jackman fighting to keep the integrity of the film intact against Disney's broader marketing goals. The fact that the Super Bowl trailer still managed to generate massive excitement, despite all the behind-the-scenes chaos, proves that fans had faith in Reynolds and Jackman to deliver the type of Deadpool film they wanted. Ultimately, it's a testament to their enduring chemistry and commitment to their characters that they were able to navigate the corporate pressure and still create something that resonated with fans. The fallout from the disputes is a fascinating story in itself. Disney may have initially attempted to push the MCU agenda, but Reynolds and Jackman's influence likely helped shape Deadpool 3 into something that defied studio constraints while still generating the excitement needed for a successful release.
What was the meeting like when you're discussing with Disney the jokes about Disney?
The fun story would be that Disney was just appalled at everything and was never going to let us do anything. But that's on one hand. On the other hand, money. They had a lot of faith in us to deliver and to self-govern. So yes, there's jokes in there that I personally cannot believe they let us.
And neither did I.
Because we were like the kind of good boy students turning in our script every once in a while. And every time we send a script, we were like kind of waiting, and the pushback never came. And it became clear that on this movie, funny wins.
Really, there was one joke, one line that they asked me to take out.
When I was on set, I was like, there's no way that's going to be it.
Yeah. I have a joke about Hugh that I couldn't believe he let me say in the movie. So that passes. I was like, wow, he let.
Deadpool 3 really did become a statement about creative integrity in a Hollywood landscape increasingly driven by corporate interests. Reynolds and Jackman's refusal to compromise on the film's tone, staying true to the Deadpool character, paid off, proving that audiences still crave films that break the mold and stay authentic to their roots. Their success was a victory not just for their characters, but for artistic freedom in a system where formulaic storytelling often reigns. The fallout surrounding Brie Larson is also a compelling part of this broader conversation. It seems like Larson's future in the MCU is very much in flux, with the Marvel's performance leaving questions about the direction of her character. The potential transformation into the fan-favorite binary persona could be a strategic way for Disney to reframe Captain Marvel, but it remains to be seen how this plays out. In the end, Deadpool 3's success was a reminder that even in an era dominated by corporate synergy, there's still room for stories that prioritize creative vision. Reynolds and Jackman's commitment to staying true to their characters resonated deeply with fans, and it will be interesting to see how this success impacts future superhero films and the direction of the MCU as a whole.
Build the team, the X-Force, and the studio was like, yes, like synergy, Avengers, like that's what we're gonna get out of this. It's gonna be great. And I was like, yeah, they're all amazing. They're all like super huge stars. It's gonna be awesome.
There's rumors all about all these insane cameos that may or may not be in the movie. I know you have a good poker face, but I've seen a few names floating around.
I would say that they're not, like, we don't really have cameos as much as surprises.
Taylor Swift.
What happened? I wish she made good Deadpool. funny.
Are there cameos?
There are surprises. I would say that the folks that do show up in the movie that somehow I have no idea how we managed to keep it secret, given the internet and all this stuff, because somehow it hasn't come out. I would say that they're more surprises because they have beginnings, middles, and ends. They're not like, it's not just like a, hey, there's the person and we move on. It's they're there for a reason.
Here's every single character that had a cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine. Obviously, big spoilers if you still haven't seen the movie. Let's start with some of the smaller cameos, which were characters like Happy Hogan and Hunter B-15 from the Loki series, Sabretooth, Pyro, Toad, and Juggernaut from the original X-Men trilogy, as well as Daphne Keen's X-23 from the Logan movie. Now, there's a scene where Deadpool goes through the multiverse trying to find a version of Wolverine to bring back to the TVA, and it's here where we get a small cameo from the Incredible Hulk, as well as a variant from Wolverine played by Henry Cavill himself. Now, the cameos in this movie people are not going to be able to stop talking about are definitely going to have to be Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade, Chris Evans returning as Johnny Storm aka the Human Torch, and Channing Tatum finally being introduced as Gambit after all these years. Oh, and I totally forgot about Jennifer Garner's cameo as Elektra, but I'm sure most of you also did. And finally, some of the Deadpool variants had cameos from celebrities such as Blake Lively as Lady Deadpool, Nathan Fillion behind the voice of Headpool, Matthew McConaughey was there as Cowboy Pool, and even Tom Holland's brother Harry played a variant of Deadpool.
The decision to remove Brie Larson from Deadpool 3 really encapsulates the battle between creative vision and corporate interests, highlighting just how much was at stake for Ryan Reynolds. For Reynolds, Deadpool was always about breaking the mold, about chaos, irreverence, and going against the grain of what was expected from superhero films. The inclusion of Captain Marvel, especially under Disney's directive, felt like a threat to that very essence. It wasn't just about one cameo. It was a larger protest against what Reynolds saw as Disney's formulaic, sanitized approach to filmmaking. Reynolds fought not only to protect Deadpool's identity, but also to maintain the integrity of the film as a whole. By pushing back against the inclusion of Captain Marvel, he was standing up for a more daring, unpredictable brand of storytelling that prioritized character and tone over corporate synergy. The cameo wasn't just a simple addition. It represented the imposition of a corporate agenda on a film that was supposed to be anything but predictable. Disney's desperation to inject life into the struggling MCU following several high-profile failures made the Captain Marvel cameo seem like a logical move. They were looking for ways to tie Deadpool 3 into the broader MCU narrative, hoping to generate some crossover excitement and continuity. But Reynolds, Jackman, and director Sean Levy understood that to do so would risk turning Deadpool 3 into just another cog in the MCU machine, rather than the chaotic, boundary-pushing film it needed to be. Ultimately, Reynolds' decision to push back wasn't just about Deadpool 3, but about the future of superhero films as a whole. His stance became a symbolic protest against a Hollywood system that increasingly favors corporate agendas and predictable storytelling over unique, character-driven narratives. The removal of Larson's cameo was a small victory for creative freedom, one that fans of the Deadpool franchise and of bold, original filmmaking in general can celebrate. The decision to cut Brie Larson's Captain Marvel cameo from Deadpool 3 wasn't just about a single casting choice. It was part of a much larger power struggle between Ryan Reynolds and Disney's corporate influence over the MCU. Disney's initial plan to use Larson scenes as a promotional bridge to future projects, including the Fantastic Four reboot and possible Avengers crossovers, reflected their larger MCU strategy. However, for Reynolds, this move felt like a betrayal of Deadpool's essence. The character, known for its unpredictability and irreverence, couldn't afford to be treated as mere marketing material to serve Disney's broader MCU goals. Reynolds was quick to see that Larson's scenes weren't integrated to serve the story, but were more like an ad for the MCU's larger strategy. This stark contrast between the spontaneous, free-spirited nature of Deadpool and Disney's marketing-driven approach created a serious clash in creative vision. Reynolds was adamant that Deadpool needed to remain untamed and outside the bounds of Disney's commercial reach. His ability to stand his ground came at a crucial time for Disney, who was still reeling from the financial and critical failure of the Marvels. The Marvels had a staggering budget of $455 million, and with its disastrous box office performance, losing $237 million, it became one of the biggest flops of the year. Disney couldn't afford another misstep, and Reynolds recognized this financial vulnerability. His leverage grew as he made it clear that forcing Captain Marvel into Deadpool 3 would risk alienating an audience that was already skeptical, especially after the backlash the Marvels faced. Reynolds understood that this wasn't just about Deadpool, but about the broader MCU's struggles to maintain audience interest in a shifting cinematic landscape. Hugh Jackman's support of Reynolds during these tense negotiations was a pivotal factor as well. Jackman, having voiced his concerns about Disney's interference with the tone and marketing of the film, helped bolster the creative team's position. Their combined resistance to Disney's push for synergy shifted the balance of power, giving them the upper hand and ensuring the film stayed true to its roots. The cutting of Larson's cameo wasn't just a financial decision. It marked a significant turning point in the ongoing struggle over the future of the MCU. For years, Marvel Studios' success had been built on tightly controlled narratives, interconnected stories, and consistent tones. Deadpool 3's defiance of this formula was a symbolic moment in the evolving landscape of superhero films, one where creative control was being fought for in a way that could reshape how films within the MCU are made moving forward. The decision to remove Brie Larson from Deadpool 3 symbolized a much larger shift in the way audiences view and consume superhero content. As the MCU has grown increasingly reliant on established characters like Captain Marvel to anchor its universe, the failures of recent projects such as The Marvels, Eternals, and Indiana Jones and The Dial of Destiny have exposed the limitations of this cookie-cutter, interconnected approach. These films, despite their star power and franchise connections, have failed to resonate with audiences who seem to be tiring of the overly formulaic, corporate-driven storytelling that dominates the MCU. By cutting Larson from Deadpool 3, Reynolds and Jackman made a bold statement. Deadpool is not just another cog in the MCU machine. It is a character-driven franchise that thrives on subverting expectations, shocking audiences, and staying true to its roots. Captain Marvel, with her polished and idealistic persona, simply didn't fit into that world. Including her in Deadpool 3 would have undermined the film's chaotic, irreverent energy, making it feel like just another MCU property, rather than a unique cinematic experience that audiences loved. Brie Larson, for her part, has taken the decision in stride, reflecting on the situation with grace and optimism. While acknowledging the underwhelming reception of The Marvels, she expressed confidence in her character's future and has hinted at the potential transformation of Captain Marvel into the fan-favorite binary persona. This potential shift could give her character a more compelling arc, and Larson seems open to adapting as the MCU looks to recalibrate its approach. Ultimately, the removal of Larson's cameo from Deadpool 3 underscores a broader trend in Hollywood. Audiences no longer want to be sold on the idea of a shared universe or interconnected stories. What they want are authentic, character-driven narratives that feel genuine and true to the essence of the characters they love. For Reynolds and Jackman, standing firm against Disney's interference wasn't just about protecting Deadpool and Wolverine. It was about sending a message that creative vision still matters, even in an industry where corporate mandates often overshadow artistic integrity. Deadpool 3's success has already set a new precedent for what superhero films can be. Sometimes, breaking free from the formula is exactly what's needed to deliver something that resonates with audiences on a deeper level. It's a reminder that, at its core, the best storytelling isn't about fitting into a larger plan or universe. It's about staying true to the characters and narratives that made fans fall in love in the first place.
So I've been trying to get it made for 11 years. Yeah, we developed the script 6 years ago, wrote this fantastic script. It leaked online and Deadpool fans went nuts for it. So the studio granted us a small amount of money to make test footage. This test footage that we shot then sat on the shelf for 4 years, as it does. They didn't do anything with it. And then about just a little under 2 years ago, it leaked accidentally onto the internet. Well, here's the thing. The fans freaked out. The Deadpool fans freaked out and overwhelmed Fox. And Fox basically had to greenlight the movie. The problem was, like, this footage was owned by Fox and sort of illegal. I know that one of us did it. Like, there's four of us. There's me, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Tim Miller, the director. One of us did it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know who did it. Yeah.
We all sort of said at the beginning, someone should leak it. Someone should leak it. So the idea was planned, but I'm 70% sure.
Don't try to chase me. Wait! I'm not ready to be touched again. All these old guys on the wall. Who lives here? Callista Flockhart? Those were already damaged after they fell there.
What am I supposed to do around here anyway? Sit in a share circle, talk about my feelings? And how would I do that exactly? Because where the fuck is everyone? It's always just you, Negasonic Teenage, longest name ever.
I said no touching.
What the fuck? You think the studio would throw us a bone? One that doesn't end up in my mouth? The first movie made more money than the guy who invented pants. Okay, they can't just dust off one of the famous X-Men. How about that Potts with the giant pigeon wings? What do those do anyway, huh? Carry him 3 feet off the ground to snatch up the nearest muffin crumb? No. I am not X-Men material.
Formulaic world building and franchise crossovers. By cutting Brie Larson's cameo, Deadpool and Wolverine avoided the trap of becoming just another MCU cog and instead delivered a film that stayed true to its chaotic, irreverent roots. The move allowed the film to stand on its own, focusing on the characters and the dynamic between Reynolds' Deadpool and Jackman's Wolverine, rather than trying to align with Disney's broader MCU agenda. The audience response to this creative decision was clear. People wanted a fresh, unpredictable experience, not another interconnected chapter in a sprawling universe. The box office success of over $1.3 billion was a testament to the fact that when Hollywood embraces creative vision over corporate mandates, it can pay off in a big way. The film's triumph reinforced the idea that audiences value authenticity and originality, and it showed that sometimes breaking free from the formula can lead to something even bigger than expected. Deadpool and Wolverine's success set a new precedent for what superhero films could be. It proved that there's room for both expansive universes and smaller, character-driven stories, and that the key to lasting appeal is a commitment to storytelling that resonates with the audience on a personal level, not just fitting into a larger commercial plan. Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and director Sean Levy pulled off something that many thought was impossible, especially in the wake of a string of underwhelming MCU projects. The MCU, post-Avengers, Endgame, has struggled to maintain its earlier magic, with only Spider-Man: No Way Home standing out as a rare success amidst a slew of lackluster entries. Films like The Marvels and Eternals failed to spark excitement, leading to dwindling box office returns and an increasing sense of fan fatigue. Deadpool and Wolverine, however, provided the perfect remedy to what ailed the MCU, offering star power, iconic heroes, nostalgia, and an edge-of-your-seat storyline. Fans had been waiting for years to see Hugh Jackman return as Wolverine, especially in his classic yellow suit, a moment 25 years in the making. Paired with Reynolds' Deadpool, the duo brought an undeniable dynamic that obliterated expectations. This wasn't the mishandled attempt seen in X-Men Origins. Wolverine. This was the team-up fans had been dreaming of, and the result was pure cinematic gold. From the moment the first trailer dropped, anticipation reached a fever pitch, and it was clear that the collaboration between Reynolds and Jackman was the kind of magic fans had been craving. The film delivered everything Marvel needed to course-correct and reminded audiences of what made these characters so beloved in the first place: their personalities, their legacy, and their ability to create something truly special when allowed to stay true to their roots. Ultimately, Deadpool and Wolverine became a beacon of hope for a genre that had lost some of its luster, proving that sometimes returning to the essence of what made something great is all it takes to spark a new wave of excitement. The real-life friendship between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, combined with their on-screen chemistry, was a key ingredient in making Deadpool and Wolverine a success. Along with the brilliant writing team, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, Zeb Wells, Sean Levy, and Reynolds himself, the film struck the perfect balance of action, humor, and heart. It wasn't just another superhero movie. It was a love letter to fans who had waited years for this team-up, infused with Reynolds and Jackman's unique charisma. The film's humor, especially the fourth-wall-breaking moments, took things to a whole new level. This wasn't just about mocking superhero tropes or referencing past Deadpool films. It was an all-out satirical assault on everything from Disney and Fox's business dealings to MCU conventions, and even the personal lives of Reynolds and Jackman. They didn't just poke fun at the industry. They skewered it with razor-sharp wit, pushing boundaries and leaving no sacred cow untouched. This unapologetically chaotic tone resonated with audiences who were growing tired of the formulaic and safe narratives coming out of the MCU. Fans loved how Deadpool and Wolverine felt like a breath of fresh air, an unpredictable, no-holds-barred cinematic experience that gave them exactly what they wanted without compromise. The relentless humor, The sharp satirical edge and the characters' deep respect for their legacy were all factors that made the film a hit with both fans and critics alike. The $1.3 billion global box office haul wasn't just a financial success. It became a cultural moment. It was proof that audiences still wanted something raw, bold, and authentic. Deadpool and Wolverine not only delivered on the promise of a Deadpool-Wolverine team-up, but it also delivered a much-needed reminder of why fans fell in love with these characters in the first place: their ability to surprise, subvert expectations, and bring something truly unique to the screen. The massive success of Deadpool and Wolverine has sparked a conversation about the future of the MCU and whether this marks the beginning of a much-needed creative renaissance within Marvel. Ryan Reynolds, along with Hugh Jackman, has not only delivered an unforgettable film but also set a precedent for what audiences crave: bold storytelling, character-driven narratives, and a willingness to take creative risks. For years, the MCU has been criticized for its rigid formula, where creativity often took a backseat to overarching narratives and corporate interests. However, Deadpool and Wolverine proved that when given the freedom to take risks, filmmakers can produce something that resonates deeply with fans and critics alike. The film's success is a clear message to Disney and Marvel that audiences aren't just looking for assembly line content. They want originality, and they're willing to reward it. De-corporate oversight, making Deadpool and Wolverine not just a triumph for the characters, but a pivotal moment for the entire superhero genre. With Marvel's recent financial struggles, including the box office disaster of the Marvels, it's clear that fans and critics are calling for change, and Reynolds has provided a roadmap for how to move forward. The question now is whether this will lead to a larger shift in the MCU, with more room for creative freedom and less reliance on corporate mandates. Deadpool and Wolverine has set a new standard, reminding both the studio and the audience of what made superhero stories compelling in the first place: characters that resonate, stories that surprise, and a creative spirit that refuses to be boxed in. While it's unclear if Disney will fully embrace this shift, one thing is certain: the success of Deadpool and Wolverine proves that there's still a huge appetite for innovative, character-driven films. This victory for Reynolds, Jackman, and the entire creative team feels like a rebellion against the formulaic nature of modern blockbuster filmmaking. As we reflect on this monumental success, one can't help but wonder: has Deadpool and Wolverine set the stage for a Marvel rebirth? If Reynolds' gamble reshapes the MCU, it could signal a new era where creativity and authenticity take center stage, breaking free from the studio's controlling influence. Whatever the future holds, Deadpool and Wolverine will always be remembered as a turning point, a reminder that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards.